The Zarkarian warships emerged from hyperspace like obsidian daggers cutting through silk, their massive forms casting long shadows across Earth's orbital defense platforms. Admiral Thea Blackwood stood on the bridge of the EDS Horizon, her weathered hands gripping the command rail as she watched humanity's first contact with an alien civilization unfold in the worst possible way. Multiple energy signatures detected, Admiral. They're charging weapons, Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the tension pervading the bridge. The Zarkarian ships, with their distinctive crystalline structures and biomechanical designs, had appeared without warning. Their first message to Earth had been simple: submit or perish. Humanity's response, delivered by the United Earth Council, had been equally succinct: we choose neither. The battle that followed would be remembered as the Day of Falling Stars. The Zarkarian technology was centuries ahead of Earth's defenses. Their quantum phase cannons cut through Earth's most advanced shields like they weren't even there. The orbital defense grid, humanity's pride and supposed protection, collapsed within hours. Admiral Blackwood watched as city after city was targeted. The aliens were methodical, destroying military installations first, then moving on to industrial centers. They were careful to avoid complete destruction of the planet's infrastructure. They wanted Earth intact, just its people subdued. Send the Prometheus protocol signal, Blackwood ordered, her voice carrying the weight of billions of lives. The command was Earth's last resort, a plan so secret that only a handful of people knew its full scope. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a facility unknown even to most of Earth's leadership, Dr. Ravul Patel received the signal. His team had spent the last decade preparing for this possibility, ever since the first deep space signals had been detected. Begin Operation Phoenix, he commanded, initiating a sequence that would change the course of human history. Back on the horizon, Blackwood watched as the last of Earth's visible defenses crumbled. The Zarkarian commander, Supreme Executor Vexthor, appeared on their screens, his crystalline features arranged in what passed for a smile among his species. Your resistance was admirable, but futile, Vexthor declared. Your species will serve the Empire well. We are not cruel masters to those who accept their place. Blackwood's response was a thin smile. You know, there's an old saying on Earth: don't count your chickens before they hatch. The confusion on Vexthor's face was the last thing she saw before the Horizon's bridge erupted in flames. The ship, along with the remaining Earth fleet, was lost. The Zarkarians had won, or so they thought. In the months that followed, the aliens established their control over Earth. They set up massive processing centers, beginning the systematic categorization of human populations for various labor roles within their empire. Their security was absolute, their victory complete. They never noticed the subtle changes happening beneath their feet. Dr. Patel's team had seeded Earth's crust with quantum-entangled nanites years before the invasion. These microscopic machines were now slowly but surely infiltrating everything: the air, the water, even the Zarkarian ships themselves. Each nanite carried a fraction of human consciousness, a piece of the collective knowledge and determination of the species. In their arrogance, the Zarkarians hadn't bothered to scan for technology they couldn't comprehend. They didn't notice when their own ships began to change at the molecular level, when their supposedly impenetrable armor began hosting billions of microscopic allies of humanity. The resistance, led by Commander Kira Yoshida, operated from hidden bunkers across the globe. They watched and waited as the nanite infiltration reached critical mass. The Zarkarians had no idea that their victory was about to become their greatest nightmare. Phase 1 is complete, Yoshida reported to the Hidden Council. The nanites have achieved full integration with their systems. We can begin Phase 2 whenever you give the word. The Council, composed of the few surviving military and scientific leaders, had been preparing for this moment. They knew the price of failure would be the extinction of the human race, but they also knew something the Zarkarians would soon learn. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or technology, but in its ability to adapt, to survive, and to turn defeat into victory. As the first year of occupation drew to a close, the Zarkarians celebrated their successful conquest of another world. In their orbital command centers and ground-based fortresses, they never suspected that every piece of their technology, every system they relied on, had already been compromised. The day of reckoning was approaching, and humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate a species that had spent its entire history learning how to survive against impossible odds. Under the crimson skies of Mars, Dr. Rahul Patel stood before a holographic display showing the progress of the nanite infiltration across Earth. The subterranean facility, known as Phoenix Base, hummed with activity as scientists and military personnel worked tirelessly on humanity's response to the Zarkarian occupation. The nanites have achieved 98% integration with their primary systems, Dr. Patil announced to the gathered council. But more importantly, we've decoded their quantum communication protocols. We can now understand every transmission between their ships and bases. Commander Yoshida, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the hologram, nodded. And they still haven't detected anything. Their arrogance is our greatest advantage, replied Dr. Patil. They're so convinced of their technological superiority that they're not even looking for threats at this level. The nanites are literally rebuilding their technology from the inside out, and they think their systems are simply performing routine maintenance. The Phoenix Project, as it was called, was more than just a military response. It represented humanity's greatest scientific achievement, the merger of organic consciousness with quantum computing. Each nanite carried a fragment of human ingenuity, allowing them to adapt and evolve in ways the Zarkarians couldn't predict. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's oceans, massive fabrication facilities worked in complete silence, protected by gravitational distortion fields that made them invisible to Zarkarian sensors. Here, the next generation of human weapons was being born, designed by AI systems that incorporated the collective knowledge of human military history. "Show me the Lazarus Protocol status," Commander Yoshida requested. The hologram shifted, displaying a complex network of neural patterns. These patterns represented the consciousness of thousands of Earth's greatest minds, preserved digitally before the invasion, and now working in concert to develop strategies against the occupiers. The Lazarus minds have completed the analysis of Zarkarian battle tactics, reported Lieutenant Raven Wilson, the young officer in charge of the Digital Consciousness Program. They've identified several critical weaknesses in their command structure. The Zarkarians rely too heavily on centralized control. Take out their command nodes, and their entire fleet will be temporarily paralyzed. Above them, on the surface of Mars, automated factories appeared to be producing simple mining equipment. In reality, each machine contained billions of nanites, waiting to be transported to Earth under the guise of routine resource shipments. The Zarkarians had allowed these shipments to continue, seeing Mars as nothing more than a source of raw materials. "What about Project Prometheus?" asked Council Member Diana Zhao, her holographic form flickering slightly. She was broadcasting from one of the underwater facilities, coordinating the Pacific resistance. Dr. Patel's expression turned serious. "We've successfully tested the quantum inversion drive. Once activated, it will turn their own shield technology against them. Every Zarkarian ship in the system will experience a catastrophic power failure, but we'll only get one chance. They'll adapt quickly once they realize what's happening." The preparations continued in absolute secrecy. The resistance had learned that the Zarkarians' overconfidence extended to their surveillance of human communications. They monitored standard radio and digital channels, but ignored the quantum-entangled signals that now connected the human resistance across the solar system. In the orbital shipyards above Earth, Zarkarian engineers supervised the construction of new warships, unaware that the human slaves working beneath them were incorporating specialized nanite clusters into every vital system. These clusters waited silently, gathering data and slowly modifying the ship's neural networks to respond to human commands. Commander Yoshida spent hours studying the holographic battle simulations, planning the coordination of their first strike. "The timing has to be perfect," she explained to her officers. "When we activate the quantum inversion, we'll have exactly 47 minutes before their secondary systems come online. Every target needs to be neutralized within that window." The Resistance had also discovered something surprising about their occupiers. The Zarkarians were not as united as they appeared. Intercepted communications revealed growing tensions between different factions within their empire. Some believed that humanity should be completely exterminated, viewing them as too dangerous to be kept as slaves. Others saw humans as a valuable resource to be exploited. These divisions would prove crucial in the coming conflict. Dr. Patel's team made another breakthrough when they decoded the genetic structure of Zarkarian biology. "Their crystalline physiology is both their strength and their weakness," he explained. "They're virtually immortal, but they're vulnerable to specific frequencies of quantum resonance. We can use this to our advantage." As the second year of occupation approached its end, humanity's hidden forces were nearly ready. The nanite integration was complete, the quantum weapons were prepared, and the resistance forces were in position across the solar system. Earth's surface might have shown the marks of alien occupation, but beneath the facade of submission, a storm was brewing. In a secure chamber deep within Phoenix Base, Commander Yoshida stood before the assembled holographic images of resistance leaders from around the world. "Tomorrow, we begin Phase 3, she announced. "Every ship, every base, every piece of Zarkarian technology will turn against them. They thought they had conquered us, but they've really just been helping us build their defeat." The leaders nodded solemnly, each knowing their role in the coming battle. Humanity had spent 2 years preparing, learning, and adapting. The Zarkarians were about to learn why Earth's species had survived multiple extinction events. Adaptation wasn't just a survival strategy for humans, it was encoded in their very DNA. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Patel approached Commander Yoshida with a final report. "The quantum consciousness network is ready," he said quietly. "Once we activate it, every human connected to the network will function as part of a single coordinated intelligence. We'll be able to react faster than any individual consciousness could." Yoshida looked out through the reinforced windows at the Martian landscape. "Tomorrow, we take back our home," she said, "and we show the galaxy why you should never corner a species that evolved as both predator and prey." The pieces were in place. Humanity was ready to strike back, and the Zarkarians would never see it coming. The day began like any other under Zarkarian occupation. Their crystalline ships hung in Earth's orbit, casting familiar shadows across the cities below. Supreme Executor Vexthor stood on his command deck, reviewing reports of human productivity in the mining sectors. Nothing suggested that this day would be different, until everything changed. At exactly 300 Earth Standard Time, Commander Yoshida gave the order: "Initiate Prometheus Protocol." In that instant, quantum signals raced through the nanite network that had silently spread throughout every piece of Zarkarian technology. The effect was immediate and devastating. Shield generators across their fleet suddenly inverted, creating implosion fields that crushed dozens of ships into singularities. Others simply went dark, their power cores shutting down as years of microscopic sabotage came to fruition. Vexthor watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to destroy itself. "What is happening?" he demanded, his crystalline features fracturing with stress. Before his officers could respond, the command deck systems turned against them. Environmental controls shifted, creating resonance frequencies that caused their crystalline bodies to vibrate painfully. From hidden bases across Earth, human forces emerged with weapons that seemed to appear from nowhere. These weren't the primitive projectile weapons the Zarkarians had expected. They were quantum phase rifles, reverse-engineered and improved from captured alien technology. Dr. Patel's voice echoed through the quantum consciousness network, connecting every resistance fighter. "The nanite integration is complete. All human forces now have direct neural control of infected Zarkarian systems. Across the solar system, Humanity's counterattack unfolded with terrible precision. The quantum consciousness network allowed thousands of fighters to coordinate their actions as a single entity. Ships that the Zarkarians thought were under their control suddenly turned their weapons on their own command centers. In orbit, Lieutenant Wilson led the space-based offensive. The seemingly primitive human space stations revealed their true nature, unfolding into advanced battle platforms that had been built piece by piece, hidden in plain sight. "All orbital units, commence firing," she commanded. The stations unleashed streams of quantum-entangled particles that shattered Zarkarian ships at the molecular level. Commander Yoshida, directing operations from Phoenix Base, watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. "Begin Phase 2 of the attack," she ordered. "Activate the ground-based resonators." Massive devices, buried beneath Earth's major cities, powered up. They began emitting specific frequencies that the Resistance had discovered were devastating to Zarkarian biology. The aliens' crystalline forms began to crack and splinter, their supposedly invulnerable bodies proving catastrophically vulnerable to the precisely calibrated waves. Vexthor, struggling to maintain his cohesion, finally understood. You were never defeated," he gasped, addressing the humans who had entered his command deck. "You were preparing." "We've been preparing since before you arrived," Commander Yoshida replied through the ship's communication system. "Every defeat we suffered was calculated. Every piece of technology you gave us access to was studied and improved. You thought you were watching slaves build your empire, but you were really watching your own destruction take shape." The battle raged across Earth and throughout the solar system. Human forces, enhanced by the quantum consciousness network, moved with impossible coordination. The Zarkarian command structure, dependent on centralized control, collapsed into chaos as their communication networks were turned against them. Dr. Patel monitored the quantum consciousness network from his station on Mars. "The network is stable," he reported. "Human neural patterns are successfully controlling all compromised Zarkarian systems. Their technology is literally becoming an extension of our will." The aliens attempted to rally, to gather their forces for a counterattack, but they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. The nanites had transformed their own ships into traps, their weapons into tools of their own destruction. In orbit, Lieutenant Wilson led a daring assault on the Zarkarian flagship. "Their neural networks are completely compromised," she reported. "We have control of their entire command and control system." The Resistance forces moved through the alien ships like ghosts, their movements guided by perfect knowledge of every corridor and system. The quantum consciousness network allowed them to react to threats before they materialized, to coordinate attacks across vast distances with perfect timing. As the battle entered its 6th hour, the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had not just defeated the Zarkarians, they had completely outmaneuvered them, using their own technological superiority against them. Commander Yoshida stood before a holographic display showing the last pockets of Zarkarian resistance. "Send the message," she ordered. The transmission went out on all frequencies, in both human and Zarkarian languages. "Your forces are defeated. Your technology is compromised. Surrender now or face extinction." The response came within minutes. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, Zarkarian forces began laying down their weapons. Their mighty empire, which had conquered dozens of worlds, had been brought to its knees by a species they had gravely underestimated. As the dust settled, Dr. Patel approached Commander Yoshida with a remarkable discovery. "The nanite network has evolved beyond our initial programming," he reported. "It's not just controlling their technology anymore, it's improving it. We're not just taking back our world, we're advancing our civilization by centuries." The day that began with alien occupation ended with human liberation. But this was more than just a victory. It was the beginning of humanity's emergence as a dominant force in the galaxy. The aftermath of humanity's counterattack sent shockwaves through the galaxy. As news spread of the Zarkarian Empire's defeat, other subjugated species began to stir. Commander Yoshida and the Earth Defense Council received transmissions from dozens of worlds, all seeking the same thing: the secret of humanity's victory. In a secure chamber aboard the captured Zarkarian flagship, now renamed the EDS Phoenix, Vexthor sat in crystalline restraints. "You don't understand what you've done," he warned Dr. Patel. "The power vacuum you've created will bring worse things than us." "Perhaps," Dr. Patel replied, studying readings from the nanite network. "But this time, we'll be ready." The quantum consciousness network had expanded beyond its original design, linking human minds across the solar system in ways previously unimaginable. Through captured Zarkarian databases, humanity learned of other threats lurking in the galaxy, ancient enemies and dark forces that had forced the Zarkarians to become conquerors themselves. Lieutenant Wilson's teams, exploring the captured fleet, made an astonishing discovery. The Zarkarians were running from something, she reported. Something that destroyed their original homeworld. Their entire empire was built as a defense against it. The revelation changed everything. Humanity's victory celebration turned into urgent preparation as they realized they had inherited not just an empire, but its enemies as well. The nanite network, now integrated into every piece of captured technology, began adapting to this new threat. Commander Yoshida convened an emergency session of the Earth Defense Council. "We have a choice to make," she announced. "We can dismantle the Zarkarian Empire, or we can transform it, turn their confederation of slaves into an alliance of equals." The decision was made. Over the next several months, humanity reached out to every world in the former Zarkarian Empire. They shared the nanite technology, the quantum consciousness network, and the secrets of their victory. But more importantly, they shared a vision of a galaxy united not by force, but by choice. Dr. Patel's team made another breakthrough. The quantum consciousness network could bridge the gap between species, allowing different races to share thoughts and experiences directly. "This is the key," he explained to the council. "Not just to defense, but to understanding." Former Supreme Executor Vexthor, now serving as an advisor to the council, watched these developments with growing amazement. "We sought to conquer the galaxy to save it," he admitted. "You seek to unite it. Perhaps this is what was needed all along." The threat that had driven the Zarkarians to conquest finally emerged from the dark space between galaxies. But instead of finding a divided and conquerable galaxy, it encountered a united front of species, their technologies and consciousness linked in ways that transcended normal space and time. Commander Yoshida stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, watching as the combined fleet of former enemies turned allies prepared to face this ancient threat. The quantum consciousness network hummed with the thoughts and determination of a dozen species working as one. "We are ready," she announced, her words carried across the neural link to every ship, every world, every being that had chosen to stand with humanity. Not just to fight, but to show the galaxy a better way. The final battle would be remembered not just as a military victory, but as the moment when the galaxy realized that true strength comes not from conquest, but from unity. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not as conquerors like the Zarkarians, but as teachers, healers, and protectors. Dr. Patel's last transmission to Earth summed up their journey. "We didn't just survive an invasion. We didn't just defeat an empire. We evolved, and we helped the galaxy evolve with us." The story of humanity's revenge had become something greater, a story of transformation, unity, and hope. The Zarkarians had sought to enslave humanity, but instead they had helped forge something unprecedented. A galaxy where different species could truly understand each other, work together, and face any threat as one. And in the vast darkness of space, the light of this new civilization shone as a beacon, promising a future where the word alien no longer meant enemy, but friend. The end.